Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wishing Machine Webinar 3. I am Joshua P. Warren, and give me just a second here to make sure everything is in place, set up properly. I want to make sure that I'm able to take your questions and answers at the appropriate time. So for those of you who are tuning in, please go ahead and try sending me some, just some little greetings. Hi, how are you doing? Here's where I'm from. And I'll make sure it looks like everything is going according to plan. Because you never know when you're dealing with technology. I noticed there's also a group chat button here, and that's pretty cool. Let me bring that up. That might be an easier way of us actually doing our Q&A. So I'm just going to go to group chat and write hi. So if one of you will do that as well, just give me a chance to see if that's going to be an option for us. Sometimes in the past I've had a little trouble with the Q&A app. I've noticed that this can be a little bit buggy at times when you do the Google Hangout. All right, well, I tell you what, I'm just going to begin, and if we do have any problems with the Q&A, we'll just do our best to work through it. Like I say, when you get a chance, go to the group chat and just type hello there. Should be able to see a little icon off to your left. It kind of looks like a little blue box, and you can say something to me. And I want to make sure that everybody hears me okay. All right, well, I'm going to go ahead and begin, and we'll figure it out. This is actually a new laptop, and it should have a better camera on it, so I'm hoping that the features will operate in a similar way. You'd think that after 3 of these webinars that we would have learned how to do all this stuff, but sometimes it's not so easy. I haven't seen anything pop up yet in the group chat window other than me saying hi. So if you can, again, write something in there, and I'm going to go ahead and proceed because we have a lot of interesting stuff to talk about. And yeah, the content here is really special. It's really exceptional tonight. So this is Wishing Machine Webinar 3, and I am joining you from my place here in Puerto Rico, my tropical beach house, which is one of the things that I wished for. And I am going to, however, be going back to North Carolina next month. That is where you will find my museum, the Asheville Mystery Museum. And the Asheville Mystery Museum is it's a place that gets really, really busy in the fall. We do a lot of tours and events leading up to Halloween. And so I am going to be going back there and spending a lot of time in Asheville, North Carolina. But this is also kind of exciting. I am going to be Just adjusting a couple things as we go along. I'm going to be doing some in-person wishing machine workshops in the very near future, meaning that I will show up in a town and you can come and spend the day with me or a few hours, however it turns out. We'll have some wishing machines on hand, and so you will be able to sit there with your wishing machine, or I'll certainly have my wishing machine. We'll talk about how to use these things, and then of course we will proceed with some interesting experiments. And that's certainly one of the things that we're going to talk about during this wishing machine webinar, because in the other two, I've already talked a lot about some of the things that the typical person is always going to wish for, like money or happiness or a loved one. And so we're going to still touch on some of those things here tonight. However, we are certainly going to dig into some of the stranger topics that we don't usually talk so much about. That is to say, some of the paranormal stuff as well, because I obviously am a paranormal investigator, and we've been able to use these devices very successfully for paranormal research. Now let me just pause and say I'm still not seeing anything coming up on my end in the group chat, so that does concern me a little bit. Let's see if this is going to change things a little bit. I just manipulated my view some. Okay, so now looks like I can see your Q&A as well, so this is good. Just want to make sure everything's going according to plan here. So I see hi from Michigan from Dan. Thank you very much, Dan. Somebody else, okay, there was a good Joe in Houston. Excellent. All right, great. So feel free to send me your comments as we go throughout the program, and I will at some point pause and I will do my best to respond to them. Okay, excellent. There we go. Now we're on track. Wanted to just make sure everybody can hear what's happening. It looks like we're doing well. I also want to let you know that at the end of tonight's webinar, I am going to give all of you what I consider to be the ultimate good luck charm. And fortunately, this is something that you can download instantly. And I call it a good luck charm very loosely, but it really is a charm that is going to enhance everything that you do in your life. And this comes from all of our years of research and experimentation, so I think that you will be very, very happy to have this, and I'm excited that I'm going to be able to give it to you tonight at the end of the webinar. So this is one of the cool things about having you tune in and conducting the webinar this particular evening with me. So I told you that this is a very exciting day for a number of reasons. For one thing, today I sent out a press release because of a major experiment that my team and I conducted last Friday. And so I do want to touch on that for a moment. As a matter of fact, I was just doing the Sean David Morton radio program, Strange Universe, and talking with him about that. So I'm imagining that many of you watching this webinar may have heard about it on Sean's show, and if so, welcome for the first time. But basically, let me just kind of give you the rundown here. Last Friday, August the 15th, was the 37th anniversary of the so-called WOW signal, okay? And basically this was a signal that was picked up by the SETI project at the Big Ear Telescope in Ohio. And this was it was a 72-second signal that came from outer space that seemed so well designed, so intelligent, that the guy named Jerry Amon, the scientist who was in charge that day on duty, he just wrote the word "wow" with an exclamation point in the margins. And so that signal has become one of the biggest mysteries in the history of science, because it pretty much hit all the earmarks that scientists were looking for in terms of some intelligent life communicating. However, all the years since then, they've been trying to find it again, and nobody's ever been able to locate the WOW signal again. Well, here I am in Puerto Rico, where we have the Arecibo Observatory, which is the largest radio satellite dish on planet Earth. It's like Earth's telephone to the cosmos. And I went to Arecibo, and I attended a ham radio festival, and I met a lot of the operators in the area who are really serious about transmissions, and pretty much coordinated this project, which we called the Arecibo Project. And essentially, we decided we would take August 15th, 2014, which again was the 37th anniversary, and transmit a message back to the aliens. Okay, and this was a message that I wrote that was recorded by George Norrie, host of Coast to Coast AM, lasted a little over a minute, and the idea was we were going to have radio operators in Arecibo and other places here in Puerto Rico send this message, which contained a set of GPS coordinates, asking the visitors to come back and appear at this certain place where we would have cameras set up, including a live webcam streaming that image of the sky to people all over the world. And it began with, well, let's just send the radio transmission, and then I started thinking, well, why don't we expand this? Why don't we not only ask other people around the world who may have radio equipment to go to areciboproject.com and get the information about the message so they can send it, but let's expand it even more. Why don't we include collective human intention in this? And what I mean by that is, what if we have people all around the world thinking about the message and sort of trying to telepathically transmit that message directly from their heads? But better yet, what if we try to enhance this with a wishing machine? So I contacted Dr. Moulder, who actually makes the machines, and he was just blown away. He thought this was a wonderful idea. And now, if you have one of our machines, fine. If not, I want to explain to you. The wishing machine is a mind-powered device. Our basic unit, which I'm holding right here in my hand, it does not take batteries. It doesn't plug into a wall. It's a box with an input plate and an output plate, and it's got knobs on it. And it's all mind-powered. However, Dr. Moulder is capable of producing custom designs for specific purposes, specific experiments. And so when I told him what we were trying to do to transmit intention for this purpose of getting aliens to show up, he said, let me build you a very particular type of device. And he created this box, and this box looks very much like a normal box, except it has an antenna. And this one actually does have a plug. And Dr. Moulder says that this actually has an electronic circuit combined with it that is going to help to electromagnetically transmit the message to the aliens as well. So this just goes to show, if you have some kind of wacky little experiment that you're trying to do, you can contact Dr. Moulder and tell him about it, and he can make something special if need be. For most people, most of the time, I mean, the basic unit, which doesn't have any power supply, is capable of doing 99% of anything you would ever want to do. So anyway, we set up this machine, tuned the coordinates into it, and sure enough, to make what could be a very long story short, we captured some phenomenal video clips. We have 2 of them posted right now at areciboproject.com. That's spelled A-R-E-C-I-B-O. And the clips, well, one of them shows what looks like some kind of a traditional saucer-shaped object that just sort of appears and then disappears at light speed. The other one, and this is the really weird one, shows an object that appears and then shoots straight up into the sky while some kind of an eerie, high-pitched tone is playing. And we couldn't figure out what the heck that tone was until later, when the evidence and the data was processed. Our engineer in North Carolina said, holy cow, in his words, he said, I almost laid an egg. He realized that the tone we picked up was actually a version of the original WOW signal that was broadcast 37 years ago. So in the press release that we put out today, we noted that SETI, back in 1977, had this big, broad-range dish that was scanning a wide variety of frequencies. Well, we didn't have anything like that. We just had a little webcam hooked up, but the webcam accidentally captured this tone. It sounds a little different from the webcam's input, of course, than it's going to sound on a huge dish. But basically, our analysis has shown that it's essentially, for those of you who are techies, a demodulated signal from the WOW transmission turned into audio. And if you go to the website, areciboproject.com, you will be able to actually see a slice, some cross-sections it's a comparison there between the WOW signal and the tone that came through. Now, needless to say, this is extremely exciting because it appears that we may have actually made contact, initiated contact with some of these beings. And you can read the press release there. But here's the reason it's so important to bring this up right now. You know, for all these decades, scientists have been going out there using traditional broadcasting methods trying to make contact, and nothing much happened. The main thing that we did differently was incorporate mind-machine technology. And it has long been believed that these visitors, these other beings, are actually conscious sensitive or thought sensitive, that they are telepathic in nature. And that being the case, it seems that these beings may actually be able to perceive the fact that we are now advanced enough to use this kind of technology, that we are understanding the next level, that we are realizing that there is a way to perhaps store consciousness and transmit conscious intentions. And maybe for them, this is some kind of an earmark that we are heading in the right direction as a civilization. So it's a beautiful example of how you might be able to use this for what amounts to paranormal research. And in fact, those of you who have a wishing machine, and those of you who are going to buy a wishing machine, are going to be deputized soon in some more experiments like this, where I'm going to contact you, and I'm going to say, we want you, if you can, if your machine's not in use right now, or if you can pause, we want you to participate in an experiment. And we want you to take your wishing machine and program it this way so that we can get this specific result at this specific place at this specific time. And continue this sort of mass consciousness exercise so that we are able to hopefully be able to make contact on an even more extravagant and expanded level. Before we get into some of these things that I want to talk to you about that have been sent to me in advance, and then we move on to answering some of the questions that you're sending in, I have a message to read from Dr. Moulder. I always do this at the beginning of these wishing machine webinars. As you know, Dr. Moulder values his privacy. As I have told you before, when word gets out that you're a guy who makes wishing machines that work, well, people will beat a pathway to your door, and so he's got to be very particular about his privacy. But here is the message that Dr. Moulder asked me to pass along tonight to all of you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. First, I would like to congratulate Joshua and his team for the fantastic results they had last Friday with the Arecibo project. I was honored to provide the special Radionics box for this experiment and was floored with the amazing audio recorded during the appearance of a UFO. This was far beyond my expectations. Next, we are constantly striving to improve the wishing machine. Since the last webinar, the front has been changed from the model on the website, as there are no longer numbers around the scale of the dials. This was done to drastically improve the function of the box. The discovery came about when it was noticed that visually impaired users were getting excellent results even though there was no way that they knew the numerical position of each knob. After further experimentation, we've noticed that these results carried over to sighted operators, and the theory is that this provides less distraction to the user when tuning and forces them to only concentrate on the stick and not knob position, resulting in more accurate tuning. Finally, I want to thank my friend Charles Casamano publicly for his help and advice with my advanced studies in radionics. He is a true genius and visionary. His books and YouTube videos have shown how simple and effective these machines truly are because of his motivation to help others and prevent this knowledge from being suppressed. He has now provided his most treasured and informative books as free PDF downloads. You may get them at charlescasamano.com/e-books.html. Now, Charles Casamano, a pioneer in this field, who has written fantastic works. His last name is spelled C-O-S-I-M-A-N-O. So again, if you want to download those, go to charlescasamano.com/e-books.html. Dr. Moulder goes on to say, for more advanced study, I strongly suggest you contact him and become a student. Warning, he's expensive, but the best always are. Sincerely, Dr. Moulder. Dr. Moulder also added a postscript. He says, here's a question that he's been getting from time to time. Question is, quote, according to the post-order email and video by Mr. Warren, I am supposed to be contacted by a radionics technician supposedly for personal tuning, or at least that was the impression I received. Is that no longer the case? End quote. Dr. Moulder has this response. That video was made almost 2 years ago. With this new generation of machines, that option is almost obsolete. Based on the feedback of many hundreds of users, this model we provide now will handle at least 99% of customers' wishes. So basically, we have learned from the feedback. He's continued modifying things. So it's not as important for you to communicate with him unless you do have some special, highly specialized project or something more advanced that you want to do. And that's very exciting. And as a matter of fact, I just looked up and I see a very nice message here from Austin saying, as a blind user, I totally agree, less distraction. Thank you for that, Austin. So let's go on here to some of the things that I would like to tell you about before we start answering specific questions. And mind you, when I said that I'm going to be doing some workshops in person at various places around, well, really the world. We're going to start in the U.S. I've already got arrangements to do one in Arizona, probably one in Colorado. If you want to know exactly when those are going to take place and how you can participate in them, just go to wishingmachineproject.com, and there's a tab there that says News, and you should check it every so often, and you will see that I'll put updates there on when these workshops are going to be available, where we can get together and hang out in person. And I'll also just post other cool stuff there from time to time. But something else you need to do when you go there is sign up for the free e-newsletter. There's a place where you put your email address in, and then it's a double opt, so you'll get an email that you have to confirm saying, I want to be on this e-newsletter list. And from that point on, I will send you emails telling you what's happening, what's up. And I write these emails myself. This is a spam-free service. I pay for this so you don't have to deal with any types of commercials or ads. You just get what I've literally sat down and written at my computer and hit send. You get it straight to you. So you'll know when I have events, or if there's a product improvement or other things like that that you will find useful. Now, again, there are a lot of sort of basic questions that we have addressed in the past webinars. I believe the first webinar was 3 hours. The second one was 90 minutes. We're going to shoot for about 90 minutes tonight. And there are lots of questions already addressed, like, if you're having trouble getting a stick, how to get a stick. Or can you use a pendulum as well? Well, yes, you can. These things have been addressed. But let me go ahead and tell you a few other things about just the general method that you should employ when you use this device. I kind of think about using your Radionics machine sort of like brushing your teeth. Now, what I mean by that is that virtually everybody brushes their teeth. If you've got teeth, you brush your teeth. We all brush our teeth. But no two people brush their teeth in exactly the same way. Now, hopefully, you can kind of more or less get the same result. Some people are obviously going to get better results. Some people are going to get cleaner teeth than others. It depends on when you do it and how thoroughly you do it. But the idea is that you brush your teeth, and your teeth are supposed to be cleaner. But there are different techniques to brushing your teeth. And it depends on what kind of a toothbrush you have and what kind of toothpaste you put on it. And do you want to brush your front teeth first or your back teeth first? Or do you want to go in a circular motion or side to side or up and down? I mean, we're all doing the same thing, but there are little nuances regarding how you can do it. And so when you're using your machine, I can't tell you that there's one strict, steadfast way you have to use it. When you watch me use the machine, you're seeing my method. Most of you have probably seen the original wishing machine movie that I made, the one that Dr. Moulder was talking about, that I made about 2 years ago. Also, if you watch the other wishing machine webinars, you'll see the techniques that I often use. And it does depend. Usually I'll just sort of stroke the stick plate with my right finger while I'm tuning with my left finger. Sometimes I'll use my thumb. I'll switch it up a little bit. And you can use a pendulum over the plate as well, but when it comes to the different ways of sort of knowing when you're getting a reaction, that's something that you will be able to sort of tell on your own personalized level. But one of the bigger challenges people seem to have is sort of understanding how to sort of represent on the machine what they want to happen. And to me, it doesn't really matter, for the most part, what you're trying to manifest. You always sort of break it down into 3 components. Now, obviously, what you want to do with the input plate is you want to represent the thing that you're trying to change. So this is your input plate, and this is the part of the box that represents the energy that you are mentally directing into the box. And I think there are three components that should go on this plate. Number one, something that represents you, because you're the operator. So that could be a photograph of you, it could be a piece of paper you've written your signature on, it could be a piece of your hair, something that has your DNA, could be all three. But that's component number one, in my opinion, something that represents you. Number two, you need something that represents the subject, the thing you're trying to influence. So that means if you are trying to, if you're trying to get a job, you want to represent that job somehow, which could be a business card from that place, or it could be some sort of even a photograph of the exterior of the offices there. Or if you're trying to materialize, your perfect house or something like that, which is what I did when I decided I wanted to have a place in Puerto Rico. A photograph of that or a sketching of that. Something that represents the ultimate subject that you're trying to influence through the machine. And the third thing is something that represents the specific change that you want to occur. And you can simply write that on a piece of paper, or if there is some other object that represents the change that you want to occur, that will work as well. Let me give you an example of this. I get still asked a lot about how do you win money, like through the lottery or if you go to a casino or something like that. Well, let me just reiterate that trying to win money, well, for one thing, if you're going to wish for money, you need to stop and ask yourself, what am I really wishing for here? What do I want to achieve with the money? So if you are going to get $1 million to buy a nice new house, skip wishing for the $1 million. Go straight to wishing for the house. Okay? Money is just a means to an end. So it's always, you always have to be very clear about what you really physically want anyhow. But if you're the gambling type, and hey, I love to gamble, and usually I have great success. It's fun, as long as you know how to do it properly in a healthy way. Okay, obviously some people have problems and they go and they blow every penny they have. So you need to know how much you can afford to lose, and it's stuff you hear all the time when it comes to gambling. But basically, if you're going to gamble, you're going to have much better luck if you go into a casino using the machine to back you up than if you're playing the lotto. The reason being that when you're playing the lotto, everybody's focusing on the same thing, and so your intention is up against everybody else's intention. And it's kind of like, if you want to get, if you want to wish for a pink Cadillac, that's great. Wish for a pink Cadillac, but don't wish for Elvis's pink Cadillac, because if you get specific about a particular representation of what you want, well, now you've lowered the odds because you are combating all these other people's intentions that are directed toward the exact same thing. So that is to say, if you're looking to win some money, you have better odds if you go to the casino instead of playing the lotto. But okay, what should you do if you're going to go to the casino? Well, here's what I do. Okay, first thing, you've decided you're going to go out for a night at the casino. Take your wishing machine, and component number one, remember, represent yourself. So you want to represent yourself here, and you want to represent yourself in a happy state. So if you're going to have a picture of yourself, let it be a picture of you having a really good day with a big smile on your face, something triumphant, something that brings back a positive memory. Because that's what we're trying to create here, positive experience. So represent yourself having a positive experience. So I'd use a good picture. Number two, you want to represent the casino. So take something that represents the building. A photograph of the casino that you print out on the internet is fine. A portion of a pamphlet or some advertising material they send out is fine. If you've been there before and you have maybe one of the little ticket stubs or something that represents winning there before, use that. Something that represents the actual casino. And the third thing, which of course is going to represent the kind of change you want to effect, should be ideally a $100 bill. If you don't have a $100 bill, well then use whatever the highest bill is that you have. But you put a picture of yourself, something that represents the casino, and a $100 bill, and that's it. Those are your three components. Then you go through, you adjust each knob as you're using the stick plate, and then whenever you find a spot where it sticks, you leave the knobs in that position. This is called direct tuning, and that's it. Because what you are now doing, theoretically, is taking this scenario represented on the input plate, you winning at this casino, and then you are transmitting that through the machine. The next thing is, don't go to that casino until you feel good about it. Never walk into a casino when you're having a bad day. Always go in there when you're feeling great, you have a positive attitude, and keep a very playful, almost detached attitude about what you're doing. So don't walk in there thinking, if I lose this money that I've decided to set aside for gambling, I'm going to go out of here crying today. Don't ever do it, because then you're probably going to lose. You have to have a positive attitude throughout the entire process. You go in there with a playful, detached attitude, and, well, all I can tell you is from my own personal experience, I usually win at the casino, and that's why. You also have to have realistic expectations. Doesn't mean that you're going to go in there and walk out with $1 million jackpot, but the idea is to walk out with more than you brought in. Now, even though I deter you from, the lotto stuff, if you're going to use this with the lotto, it's a similar kind of thing. You want to represent yourself. You want to represent the lottery itself, which means you could just put your lottery ticket on it, and then add the money, add the $100 to it, tune it, leave it. You're less likely to have success that way, but I do know people who have hit the lotto using this technique. So there you go. Another thing that I want to address here is medical issues, and you must realize that you can use the wishing machine to wish for whatever you want, as long as it's possible that it can occur within the natural laws. But we are not legally allowed to give you any kind of medical advice. And you should first just, follow your doctor's advice. And if you're not happy with how things are going, well, take the information that you have gathered about how these machines work and, apply it on your own. I'm sure that even though we can't give you any type of legal medical advice, you can get on the internet and do your own research, and you can probably find people out there who are happy to share their experiences with you. Let me also talk a little bit here about using this for paranormal stuff. Since I mentioned we were going to dig more into that tonight than we usually have, especially because of the success with the Arecibo project. Now, generally speaking, when you are using this technology, it doesn't really matter if you are using it to affect this realm or another realm. What matters is your perception. The universe is just that. It is a universe. It is one cohesive, dynamic body of energy and activity. However, humans are only able to consciously experience a slice of that at any given time. That's because our senses have limited ranges. That's why, there are bands of light that you can't see with your naked eyes, like infrared or ultraviolet, or there are certain tones that dogs and cats can hear that humans can't hear. And there are also concepts that are just too big for the human brain to perceive. And there are concepts that your brain can perceive now that the brain of a human probably couldn't have perceived 100,000 years ago, because our brains are changing. There are things your brain can perceive that a dolphin's cannot, and vice versa, right? So we all have our own unique little filter and perspective. But your worldview should not be the solid framework of what exists within the world. It's just what you're able to experience. So therefore, when you are trying to communicate with the spirit realm or UFOs that you think are maybe popping in and out of other dimensions, the machine should work just as well as it does with issues in your own life, because again, there is no real separation between you and those other things aside from what you are able to perceive. So if you're the type of person who wants to experiment with these other realms, then fine. As a matter of fact, I just looked up and noticed here that Missy Hill said, and hi Missy. Missy is a wonderful radio host and wishing machine practitioner, and she says, the machine is conscious in a way and does not want to be around electronics like cell phones, so try keeping it and your home clear from EMF pollution. Interesting point. That's one of the reasons maybe we say when you're done, put it away in a quiet place where it will not be disturbed. So I got an email from a guy who said, well, what if you're wanting to manifest a tulpa? And for those of you who don't know what a tulpa is basically a thought form. I think a lot of ghostly activity is the product of tulpa activity. So that is to say, if enough people focus on, say, a ghost materializing at a certain place at a certain time, then that can become an externalized thought form, almost like an imprint burned in the environment, and it can actually manifest. So let's say, for example, I bought a big piece of land that had 1,000 acres of woods on it, and I went through those woods with a fine-tooth comb, and I knew that there was no Bigfoot in those woods. But I started telling everybody, oh my goodness, there's a Bigfoot out there. I saw him. What did he look like? Well, he looked like a big hairy thing, like everybody else says, 8 feet tall, domed head. If I tell people that long enough, over and over and over again, and more people go there with this image in their mind, then eventually, sure enough, people will start to see Bigfoot. And it's not just because that their imaginations are getting out of hand necessarily, or that they're seeing optical illusions. The idea behind tulpas is that their thoughts are sort of layering on top of each other until finally the medium we call reality is actually sort of warped and bent into this form and this shape. And that's a big topic, and I've done experiments in the laboratory that have proved to my satisfaction that tulpas are real. So I won't dig deeply into that. You can do your own research on it. The term is TULPA, and there can be good tulpas, bad tulpas, positive thought forms, negative thought forms. But if you want to create a tulpa, well, you would approach that just like anything else when you're using the wishing machine. So basically, you would you would want to, again, let's look at the three components. Number one, let's represent yourself, since you're going to be operating the machine. Number two, let's represent the location that you want to affect. So I, a couple years ago, went to Transylvania in Romania, and we wanted to make sure everybody saw some spooky stuff. So I worked with Dr. Moulder. He said, okay, what castle are you going to be in on this date at this time? And I told him, and he got the blueprints of that castle, and he picked a certain area out, and he put that portion of that blueprint on the machine and said, okay, here's where we want the activity to happen. And then third, you represent the activity that you want to occur. And in that particular case, he wanted pebbles to get thrown at people, so he put a pebble on the machine. He wanted people to see spooky things, so he put a ghost photo on it. He represented the things that he wanted to have. I say three components, but those can be expanded into as many components as you want. And sure enough, we went to this investigation in Transylvania, and not only were there stones being thrown at people and folks seeing apparitions and women having their hair pulled and people being shoved, not only did all that stuff happen, but unbeknownst to the group, it was happening at these places, most pronounced where Dr. Moulder had set the machine up to focus the activity. So whether it's a tulpa or some kind of ghostly activity, yes, you can influence that. And I have to believe that you can also, if you do some experiments and really know a lot about it, you can use this to help clear or exorcise negative activity. I think that's perfectly reasonable that you could do this long distance with one of these machines, because if you can create activity, you should be able to neutralize some activity as well. Another person said, what about treasure hunting? How would you use it for treasure hunting? Well, there are a number of things that you could do. When it comes to treasure hunting in general, the pendulum method is something that a lot of sort of psychic practitioners have used for years. You know how, well, let's start with dowsing. You know, you see these movies where like old timers go out there and they've got a forked stick and they're walking around looking for water, and when they reach the underwater or the underground water supply, the stick jerks down to the ground. Well, that's called dowsing or divining, and there are people who do the same thing using metal rods. And you can make a couple of L-shaped metal rods out of a coat hanger and do it yourself, or there are actually some that are well fashioned, some professional models with handles that you can find at my website, joshuapwarren.com. And then, you know, there are people who walk around and they do this with a pendulum, and they say the pendulum swings in a certain way when they get over top of water. Well, it turns out that according to professional dowsers, you can look for anything this way, not just water. In Vietnam, they were in the Vietnam War. They were sending soldiers out with dowsing rods trying to locate hidden underground mines, as well as some of the tunnels that the enemy was hiding in. But things get even stranger from a radionics point of view when you realize that there are now people who are actually employed by big companies like oil companies to find oil using dowsing and divining, and they, in many cases, do not even go to the site. They will sit at home with a map, and they will douse the map just in the same way they would as if they were walking around and they were looking for something. They're doing it mentally and using the map as a reference. It's a radionic thing to do. But in terms of using one of these machines, I would say a good thing to do would be to put a photograph or something to represent yourself, put something to represent the treasure. If you have a feeling it's going to be, you know, Confederate money, get a Confederate bill. If you think it might be gold coins, put a gold coin. Put something here that represents the treasure. And then put something there that represents the location. And then straight tune the box, same as you did for going to the casino. And basically what you're doing is sending the intention out there of you going to that location, finding this treasure. When you get to the location, then just go treasure hunting using whatever method that you ordinarily would employ. If you're a dowser, well then your dowsing should be enhanced. If you're using a metal detector, your metal detecting should be better. You should get a little luckier and stumble into the right places. That sort of thing. It's about giving you an edge. It's about upping the odds. And so you begin to see it's kind of easy to figure out on your own how to deal with almost any scenario, radionically speaking, as long as you are able to go in there. Sit down with the machine in your room in peace and quiet. Think about what you're trying to achieve and break it down into those at least 3 components that you represent. And I always like to reiterate, when I say direct tuning, that means you tune the dials, you tune the knobs where you want them to be, and you leave it. There's also a method of tuning called inverse tuning, where you say, I want the opposite of this, and that's when, after you find the frequency for something that's happening, you then subtract that frequency from the number 10, and you readjust the dials. I've explained this in detail in the other 2 webinars. I think I especially got into that in webinar 2, so I won't go over that again. But those are the 2 basic ways of tuning one of these devices. So I tell you what, let's start taking some of your questions. And mind you, toward the end of our webinar here, I am going to tell all of you how to get tonight, instantly, what I consider to be the ultimate good luck charm in the world. And I'm going to explain to you why I think it's the ultimate and why I think that it works. It doesn't matter what your religion is or what your philosophy is or your outlook on life is or whatever methodology that you're used to. I believe that this can and will help every single person out there. And if you're going to make wishes and you want the most out of your box, well then you have to realize, again, it's a mind-powered machine. It's powered by your mind. So we need to make your mind as effective as possible before you start using it to really enhance what you're doing. And we call this the Wishing Machine Project because we're always learning. We're always experimenting, we're always learning, and that's why we continue doing webinars like this and posting information, because we're getting better and better at determining how to make these boxes work for you. Okay, here's a question from Daniel. Do you need to be specific on what your wish is? And how do you use a pendulum? Yes, Daniel. You need to be very specific as you can be about your wish. I mean, imagine if you are hiring somebody to do a job for you, a job that's important to you. Let's say that you are, let's say you're throwing some type of a big event, and you're in charge of this event, and it's going to be broadcast live, and everybody's going to be watching it, and there's all this pressure, and you're the director, and you've got, you know, somebody who shows up to do the lighting, and they say, how do you want this done? The more specific you are, the higher the chances that lighting director, that lighting person is going to get that lighting right. If you're like, well, I just want to make this area look kind of, you know, warm and friendly. Okay, that lighting person will do his or her best. But if you say, okay, I want to light here with this type of a gel and this type of a filter, and I want to light there, well, now you're making sure that your vision has the highest chances of coming true. So always be as specific as possible. And Sometimes that means using more words, and sometimes it means using less words. So you've got to kind of figure that one out a little bit for yourself. You want to use, I think, as few words as possible while still being descriptive about what your expectations are. So pretend like you're talking to a big genie and giving him or her instructions. What would you tell him or her to do? And again, if you decide to use a pendulum, the second part of your question, basically what you do is you hold the pendulum over top of the stick plate, and instead of rubbing the stick plate, when you're tuning the device and you get the dial where you want it to be, you need that pendulum to move in a certain way to indicate to you the dial's in the right place. So you have to figure out in advance in your mind whether or not you want that pendulum to go left and right, or back and forth, or clockwise or counterclockwise. So basically what you're going to want to do is sit down with that pendulum in advance before you even pick up your box and look at that pendulum. And you're going to program it with your mind. And you're going to say, okay, pendulum, for example, when I get to the correct position on the dial, I want you to go clockwise. If you do anything other than go clockwise, it's not going to be an accurate setting. Only when you go clockwise. And then you tune your dial and watch the pendulum. You sometimes have to go back and try it 2 or 3 times. If you make it from the beginning to the end and you don't get anything, keep trying it. After you've done it a few times, you'll probably get the motion that you want. But if not, just leave that dial set at 0. Because, you know, sometimes you just have a 0 in your rate, and you just move on to the next knob. Let's see. I'm going to put a little paper under my mouse here so it's easier to look through here. Oh, excellent. Also, Missy says, I felt the energy right away when I got my device. Felt like when I turned the knobs, there's electricity even with no wires. It must be the orgon. She says, I have had other feel it too, even though I'm not supposed to let people use the device. Yeah, you can feel the energy. And if you've never researched orgon, you should do it. Orgon is spelled O-R-G-O-N-E. Okay, keep sending your questions in here. And I am going to just answer them as they come in. Oh, we have Brad Moulder here. Greetings, Dr. Moulder. I figured you would be tuning in. And you know, one of the great things about doing these webinars is that there will come a point when just about every question will be answered, I think. At least I hope that's the case. I hope that we're doing a good enough job, especially since, you know, we've spent hours and hours in past webinars talking about this. Okay. Now, hopefully I'm looking in the right panel because I don't see any new questions coming in. This is the Q&A section. Okay, here's a question. Why does the box have a hinge on it? Why can you not open it? And why did the box maker put a hinge on it? Because it makes me want to see what's inside. It's a great question. Okay. The box has a hinge on it because originally Dr. Moulder had to get inside here. I'm presuming that he purchased the box with a hinge on it. I don't know that for a fact. If not, it could have just been that, well, he needed to clasp it when he was done, and he wanted to make it look kind of pretty. I've never asked him about, if he's just trying to tempt people. But the box is glued shut, and it should never be opened. And of course, we're talking about the clasp, and you can see the hinges on the back. The box should never be opened, because if you open it, it will destroy the circuit that's inside of it. Now, I will tell you a story. Many, many years ago, I started experimenting with Radionics boxes. And I bought one that was working very well, and I wanted to know what was inside of it. It was driving me crazy. And I was such a curious guy that I decided I was going to just destroy the box and open it. So I got all my friends over. They all knew what I was going to do. And we took out a camera. I don't remember if we shot video, but we definitely had a still camera. And I cracked it open. And inside that box that I opened up was the strangest circuit that I'd ever seen. And I sort of have a background when it comes to electronics and electrical lab experiments. So I'm fairly familiar with typical electrical circuits. The circuit in the machine, and now mind you, this was not one that was built by Dr. Moulder. This was before I even knew him. But the circuit in that machine had little cone-shaped pieces of copper that had wire running through them, and those wires were wound around quartz crystals, and they went through a variety of sections that had different numbers of coils for different resonances. And certain parts of the circuit were actually just drawn into place. And I thought, how in the heck can that possibly work? Well, if you've ever read my wishing machine workbook, you'll understand the significance of what we call virtual wishing machines and virtual wishing machine parts. And that is to say that this is not a machine that works by traditional electronic methods. This is a machine that apparently functions because it is a hybrid of some traditional electronics, some alternative exotic electronics, and subconscious human intention. And I explained what symbols do to unconscious human intention in the Wishing Machine workbook. If you've never read it, it's a PDF you can download and you can use as well. Go to Warren Books Now, W-A-R-R-E-N, Warren Books Now. And you can download a free, actually I'm sorry, it's not free, but if you download it, there is a freebie that we'll throw in for you, which you'll see that on the website. And I couldn't explain how that circuit worked. And I started doing research, and I realized that, and this is very difficult to put into words, but I realized that when a particular radionics practitioner builds a box, he almost every single time comes up with a circuit that is an amalgamation of years of study that he has put into a lot of different disciplines: electronics, psychology, sacred geometry, orgon, psychotronics, and pretty much the designer customizes the interior in a very proprietary way. And we believe, and you've heard me talk about this in other webinars, we believe that these boxes, as Missy said, are conscious, that they actually do have a consciousness. When you get your box, it already has a little pre-programming in it. And that pre-programming is from the mind of the creator of the box. So when you get this, and again, it's like getting a cell phone. When you get a cell phone, it's already got a few programs that are put on it. But it's set up so that they are open-ended programs so that you can delete what you don't like, put in what you do like, and customize it to your own personality and your own needs and make it a part of you. So every time you get one of these boxes, there's a little piece of Dr. Moulder inside of it. And that's what allows your consciousness, we believe, to start connecting with what's inside. When you open this box, the ghost in the machine escapes. This is just one way of putting it. It's a metaphor. When you open it, you're tearing some of these circuits out of place that set when he put them in there, when the glue was still gooey and he closed this thing up and let it settle, everything hardened into place. When you open it, you're going to rip some of that stuff out. I honestly have never seen the inside of one of these boxes that Dr. Moulder makes. And it's because that one time that I took that Radionics box apart, I kind of regretted it afterward, and I felt bad, and it didn't work anymore after that. So I decided I'm not going to do that. Every one of these is special. And it's so special, again, it's difficult to even put into words exactly how these things function. But that is a key component. Keeping the box creator's design safe inside. Okay, here's a great question from Susan. Do we always move all the items from the input plate to the output plate after turning the knobs? No, you don't have to do that. That is really up to you. You know, I've done it both ways. I used to always take the input plate material, and when I was done setting the knobs, transfer it to the output plate. I used to do that every time, and my wishes worked just fine. And I liked doing that because, to me, it fulfilled the idea that, okay, I'm taking something that I'm putting into the world, and now I'm receiving it coming out. But over the past couple years, I've stopped doing that. I've just said, you know, I'm just going to leave it so that it continues sort of pumping its energy inside and flowing out through a clean, unobstructed plate, and it still works just fine. So I don't think it matters that much as long as you're doing what feels good to you at that time. And what's funny is that using these boxes are a lot like playing a musical instrument, if any of you play an instrument. In the beginning, it's kind of awkward, and it's easy to sort of overthink what you do, if you're playing the guitar, how to fit your fingers on the chords and what strings to hit, or if you're playing the piano, how to stretch your fingers into certain keys and get the right hand and the left hand to coordinate. But if you keep doing it after a while and you start making music, eventually you get to a point where you don't even think about it anymore, and you kind of develop your own natural flowing style. And as long as it's working, who cares? That's why, you know, some people look at these boxes and they think of them as being a machine. Other people look at them as a work of art. I think it applies either way, and it applies in many other ways as well. Here's an interesting one from Griff. Says, I got my first wish the day after I ordered my machine. It felt like just the intention, if it was very strong, is all I needed to get the box to work. I'm glad that you wrote that, because this brings up another really fascinating thing that I intended to talk about tonight, but I had it slipped my mind to make a note about this. And this is going to sort of blow some people's minds, I know this. I now have worked with wishing machines for so long, and I have such confidence in these machines that often now I will not even put samples on the sample plate. So what I mean by that is, okay, if I'm trying to make a wish come true, and I need to figure out what those three components are, so let's use the casino example again. Let's say I'm going to go to the casino, I want to increase my odds of winning. Well, traditionally, again, you might put a picture of yourself, a picture of the casino, and a $100 bill. I've gotten to the point now where in many cases I will pick up the machine and I will look at it and I will visualize those things on the input plate. Now, granted, I have a very vivid imagination. I've published almost 20 books. I have produced and directed numerous movies. I am capable of drawing rather well. I mean, I have a pretty visual mind, and so that works to my benefit. I'm also a very vivid dreamer, if that may make a difference. But in some cases, for me, I've reached a stage in my relationship with this technology where I still go through the motions of turning the knobs and tuning it and getting the stick, but I just put a thought form of my input samples on the input plate without having to literally cut them out and place them on there. I don't recommend that people jump straight to that when they get the machine, because if they are not as visually inclined or if their intention is not as refined, then it just might not work for them. So you should start by putting the samples on there, but you're absolutely right. Just like the statement that was made there by Griff. The mere intention when this machine is around can be enough to enhance it and amplify it and make it kick in and come true. Okay, here's a question. What proof do you have that this works, and how can you say this machine works when there is no proof behind it? Okay, well, for one thing, in your question there, you've said, what proof do you have? And then you've also said, well, there's no proof behind it. So let me answer the question of how can you say this works. Okay. We are saying that this machine is somehow taking human intention and allowing that human intention to manifest through the natural laws to synchronistically create a set of circumstances so that your wish is fulfilled. First off, how do you test that in a laboratory other than giving this machine to people and saying, did your wish come true or not? When you do a scientific laboratory test, everything has to be controlled and repeatable. However, every single human being on the face of the earth is unique, especially when it comes to how their thoughts and intentions work. That's why the biggest mystery in the universe is consciousness. So we might know a little bit more about how certain body parts function for a certain person, you know, how the hand muscles work or how the lungs function or the heart functions, but we still don't understand what consciousness is. It's the ultimate mystery. And therefore, this idea of a self-awareness consciousness is something that we all already haven't established the parameters for. So what I mean by that is I cannot prove to you scientifically what I dreamed last night. Now, that was a real experience that I had, and I know what I dreamed, but I can't prove it to you. Science has not reached the point now to allow me to prove what I dreamed to you. I cannot scientifically prove to you that I love somebody. I cannot scientifically prove to you what I experience when I taste chocolate. I can tell you that it's something I enjoy, but I can't explain to you what that sensation is, because these are things that deal with subjective human experience. So the closest I can get to a scientific way of testing this box is to give it to a person and say, you tell me, did this work for you? You make a wish, and then you become the judge of whether or not that wish came true. And the closest we can get to a scientific way of proving this is to take all the people out there who have these boxes and to get feedback from all of them, which is like a survey really, and say, did this work for you? And that's why we call this the Wishing Machine Project, because that's what we're doing here. We are telling you that we have no way, there is no, if you can come up with some model in your mind for how that we could take this machine and a person and sit them down in a laboratory and scientifically prove that it's making their wish come true, write it up and email it to me. I'd love to do it in the lab. But when we're talking about the variables involved in somebody's life and all the things that develop in a person's life, this is beyond the scope of what we currently are able to reduce down into a simplified lab experiment. So for me, I know what I dreamed last night, but I can't prove it to you. I also know that when I've used this box, my wishes come true every time. And when most of the people who use the box say that, that is what inspires you to say, okay, we're on to something here. Now, there's nothing on the planet that works all the time for everybody. I mean, that's why every time you see some commercial on TV for some new drug, it's followed by the lines of disclaimers about all the horrible things that can happen if you use it. Now, that's going to happen to a very tiny percentage of the people out there. But, there are some people who can't eat peanuts or they can die. Most people can. But you're always going to have exceptions. So I'm not by any means saying that this box is going to work every time for everybody. But of the people who are using it and using it properly, the overwhelming majority say it's working for them. There may come a day when we figure out how to condense this into some kind of a lab experiment. But for now, making people's lives better is something that I'm very proud to be a part of. Let's see here. So Okay, Dr. Moulder has responded to a question about building a box here, and he says you can build a box yourself, but it will take you 4 to 7 hours depending on your skill level, and you will not have the expertise I provide when I build them for you. The proof that it works are the many testimonials from other users. We also have some of those testimonials at wishingmachineproject.com, and we're going to continue posting those testimonials as well as time goes on. But we are keeping track of the feedback, and what I find really interesting is that we are getting positive feedback from people all around the world. And that was one of the things I wondered about. Was this something that was going to simply be, sort of restricted to people who happen to use a device in America because, we're Americans? Well, no. These things have now been shipped to, China, Africa, Egypt, Australia. I mean, it's kind of hard to think of a place that they have not been shipped to. And you get these positive testimonials. And also, you should never, if you're interested in this technology, that's good, and asking questions is good. But never buy anything until you've done proper research. Go out there and read everything you can read about this, and you'll know if it's the sort of thing that you want to experiment with. And that's what it is. It's an experiment. It's also very, very difficult to discuss these concepts that are sort of on the very edges of what we are all sort of exploring and dealing with. Jason says, what do you have a doctorate in? I don't have a doctorate. I've never claimed that I have a doctorate. Maybe you're talking to Dr. Moulder. Well, look, basically, I don't think you're going to find a doctor of radionics in the world that has a piece of paper better than Dr. Seuss, because radionics is misunderstood by the mainstream. This is not some kind of a mainstream project with a mainstream product. That's the whole purpose. That's the whole point. This is why that this is groundbreaking, and this is also why it's hard to wrap your head around it. I gave this example on the radio earlier, and I've said it in webinars, but it's worth repeating. When the Wright brothers invented the airplane, Scientific American wouldn't even publish articles about it because they said this is a hoax. People have been trying for years to create a heavier-than-air flying machine. It can't be done. It's impossible. These guys are bicycle builders with a little shop in Ohio. Now we're sending people to Mars soon, they say. When Thomas Edison created the phonograph, people did not believe that it was possible because everybody said, come on, this is the scam of the century. Everybody knows you can't record a sound. A sound is not a real thing. It's an intangible thing. You can't record that. Duh. And he would give demonstrations before big groups of people, and people would think it was a magic trick, that there was a ventriloquist around, or there were tubes hidden that people were speaking through. It's because they couldn't comprehend this marriage between a physical object and an energy field. I believe that these boxes employ what I called in Wishing Machine Webinar 2, ASR, Automated Sympathetic Resonance. So if you want to know more about my own theory as to why and how these machines work, go watch Wishing Machine Webinar number 2. I talked about what sympathetic resonance is and how I believe these machines are able to automate that by storing intention, just like a phonograph stores some signature of a sound, and then retransmitting that in lieu of the conscious observer. Also, quantum physics gives us a lot of insight on how the observer is able to influence what is being observed and influence reality. This goes all the way back to the double slit experiment, that photons of light and electrons can behave as a particle or a wave based upon how they are being observed when they approach the slits. You can go to YouTube and watch a lot of interesting videos on the double slit experiment if some of the physics papers are a little bit too thick. Okay, we're coming up here on the end of the webinar because I'd set aside 90 minutes for this one tonight, and we only have about 4 minutes left. So let me tell you a couple things here, and I'm going to tell you about this good luck charm as well. Once again, keep in mind, anytime you want updates on what we're doing, go to wishingmachineproject.com. Click the news section there, and you'll find updates, as well as a place where you can sign up for the free e-newsletter, and you'll receive emails from me when I have some type of breaking news. And I am going to be doing some workshops in person at various places around the country, if not the world, over the next year or so. And you can find information on how those workshops are set up at wishingmachineproject.com. And if you are interested in helping to bring me to your town for an in-person workshop, I love to travel, especially if it's a cool place I've never been to. So maybe that's something we can work together to help set up. So here is the free good luck charm that all of you are going to receive tonight. When it comes to studying the power of the mind and the power of intention to affect reality, either directly or with the assistance of a tool like the wishing machine, it is very important that you start with the correct foundation and you build upon the correct mental perspective. And what I have found, and really what we have found, after many years of experimentation with these types of exercises, is that the single most powerful thing that you can do to just start before you put a wish out there for anything positive, no matter how you do it, the first thing you can do to help ensure success is to believe that you live in a friendly, supportive, loving universe that wants you to be happy and succeed. Now, maybe right now you don't believe that. Maybe as soon as I said that, you're like, oh, but come on, did you see the news? Oh, did you see what's happening? What's happening in this place or that place? Statistically, things are going pretty well in the world right now, okay? The news is designed to sit there and filter through all the bad stuff and focus on that, because that's what makes it newsworthy, that it's unusual. It's not what's happening most of the time. But it doesn't matter. Let's say right now you believe that the world is a dangerous, harmful place. Albert Einstein even said something to the effect that the most important decision you can make is whether or not you live in a friendly or an unfriendly universe. And I couldn't agree more. So therefore, if you believe that you live in a friendly, supportive, loving universe that wants to see you succeed and be happy, everything positive that you wish for from that point forth is going to be supercharged. It's going to have an extra degree of power. And this charm, if you will, what I call the ultimate good luck charm, it will help you do that in a very powerful way. If you go to freecharm.com, what you're going to find there is an image that is a wallpaper that you put on your cell phone. Now, you could use it on your computer and in other places as well, but it's really designed to be put on your cell phone. It's not a program. It's not a tracking device. It's just an image. It's just like a JPEG. But it's a very powerful image that represents the concept of a friendly universe smiling on you. And when you consider that every day you look at your cell phone multiple times throughout the day, and when you look at your phone, you're actively engaging in thought, and your synapses are firing off there, that makes anything on your cell phone doubly, triply powerful. Okay? When you put this image on your phone as wallpaper, it's okay if it's kind of distorted or it doesn't fit perfectly, because you're going to know subliminally what it means and why it's there. And you're going to know it's something that you put there not just because you thought it was pretty or whatever. You put it there for a purpose. The purpose is to remind yourself consciously whenever possible, but subconsciously whenever you pick up that phone and look at it, that you have the support of a friendly, loving universe behind you. And when you do that one little thing, it will absolutely transform your entire worldview and outlook every single day. When you wake up in the morning, doesn't matter what you feel like, what you've been dreaming about, when you look at your phone, you remember, I live in a friendly universe. And that sets the tone for the rest of your day. And every positive intention that you have is supercharged because you've already started from that point. So I want you to go to freecharm.com and send that website address to all your friends and family, post it on Facebook, tweet about it, do whatever you'd like to do with it to get it out there. Because, as you know, I have a very positive view of humanity. I have faith in humanity, and there's good reason for it. And I believe little things like this can make a big difference. It begins with the way that we all think. And you're going to see profound differences in your life by simply putting that on your phone. Now, you just try it out, and you just wait and see. I tell you what I'd really like for you to do. I'd like for you to take your calendar out and make a note of the day that you put this on your phone. And then, if the day ever comes when you think about removing it from your phone, stop first. Remember, oh yeah, I wrote that date down when I put it on my phone. Go back, get that calendar, and look over that calendar at the things that have happened in your life since you put it on the phone. And you tell me if your life has not improved by simply doing that one little thing. It'll make everything work better. And that's why I call it the ultimate good luck charm. That's FREECHARM, freecharm.com. So guys, great questions tonight. As always, it's been a delight to have you tuning in from around the world. Keep in mind, for updates, just sign up for the e-newsletter and check in with us at wishingmachineproject.com from time to time. And things are becoming more and more excited, and I am just delighted to see the positive changes that are being made in the world since people just like you are now being empowered. Be sure to go back and watch the other webinars for even more answered questions links to radio programs, and help get the word out there. So you have a fantastic rest of your month. Until next time, as always, best wishes.